Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Identity Security in the Age of AI. I'm Prashant Said, Technical Architect at Prescient, and I'll be moderating today's discussion with our Chief Operating Officer, Kanchan Patwardhan, and our CEO, Amit Arul. I'd like to invite both of you to briefly introduce yourselves to our audience.
Hey, thanks a lot, Prashant. My name is Amit Arole, founder and CEO of Prescient and an identity security company with offering Identity Confluence as a first citizen offering for identity security to handle identity lifecycle management, application access governance, and enterprise compliance.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening. I'm Kanchan Patwardhan. I work with Prescient as Chief of Operations. So basically, that's my title. And along with Chief of Operations role, I'm also working as Chief Product Owner. And being Chief Product Owner, I'm working on defining the roadmap for our IGA platform, which is Identity Confluence. And we are ensuring that it is AI ready for the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks, Kanchan. So today we'll be exploring how AI is reshaping the identity security, what new challenges are emerging, and how modern IGA systems like Identity Confluence enables a future-ready security posture. Let's begin, right? The first question I have is, before AI changed the landscape, what problems were traditional IGA systems designed to solve?
Sure, Prashant. So I would like to take that. And the IGS systems, which are traditionally being used for many years now and which are completely relevant even at this point in time, they are mainly focused on human-centric workflows, right? So they are actually managing human identities at the core. So very basic workflow that these IGS systems take care of are lifecycle automation, so joiner, mover, and leaver use cases, right? So when we talk about lifecycle automation, typically in the organizations, flows start with the HRMS systems. So the new employee gets onboarded and gets created on the HRMS platform. From there, typically the identity flows into Identity Confluence or whatever IGS system the organization is using, and then it also flows into IDP systems and the target applications. So since the identity is sort of getting transitioned from HRMS to Identity Confluence to target applications, this entire, all this flow is actually managed by connectors. So the entire system is connector based. We have to build connectors for the HRMS systems, IDPs, and all the target applications. Once the provisioning and deprovisioning of accesses happens through all these connectors, the important part is how we are governing the accesses, right? So the access reviews is important part of the whole equation, where the managers would sort of approve or reject the entitlements of his or her subordinates periodically. Then access, so this is access governance. The next part is actually RBAC. So role-based access control is again another important feature, and mainly that's used because organizations have to ensure that the employees are getting accesses which are relevant to their job functions. Then this RBAC sort of got evolved into attribute-based access control, policy-based access control, and now even risk-based access control.
Right.
So when we talk about policy-based access control and policies, segregation of duties is a very important aspect because you need to ensure that there are no toxic combinations of accesses which employees can exploit. So someone who is creating should not be able to approve the accesses. Now, all these features sort of ensure that people have the accesses. So we are following the least privilege principle, right? So whatever accesses are really required to do day-to-day job functions are granted to the user in the automated fashion. But then there could be exceptions where people might need certain accesses for short duration of time. And for that purpose, these systems also provide the access request modules where people can go and then request for access, the entire workflow happens, and eventually those accesses are granted to the users. So if you typically look at all these flows, right, these are extremely human-centric. So these are meant to manage the workforce identities or customer identities. But what change has AI brought in, right? AI actually has brought in a major change, which we can describe in two ways. So first is AI has brought in a lot of challenges because there is really explosion of non-human identities in the world of AI. So these IGS systems have to really evolve to take care of such challenges, which basically get sourced through that as a root cause. And on the second side, AI also is helping IGS systems to become faster, more accurate, and eventually giving, serving customers better, right? So we will look at both these aspects in today's webinar.
Okay, thanks, Kanchan.
Sure.
So to summarize, right, the traditional IGA was more human-centric, right? It was
Yeah.
focused on the life cycle, access governance, and compliance. But I think now it needs to evolve in the AI era. So following up on that, in the age of AI, what new identity challenges are emerging, and how is Identity Confluence addressing them?
Right. Yeah. Hey, thanks, Prashant. I think I'll take that question, right? So as Kanchan elaborated in terms of the current IGS systems and how current IGS systems have been able to manage the identity lifecycle, policy-based access controls and role-based access controls and UARs, more so from a human, centric, like a human identity centric perspective, right? And this was good, so far, I would say, until very recently. And now we are seeing with the AI systems coming in place, there's a lot of autonomous execution being handed over to a variety of autonomous jobs. So they could be workload jobs, they could be bots processing things on behalf of human beings, or there could be shared accounts and service accounts and tokens and so on and so forth, which essentially go ahead and take on the workload, execute the workload autonomously, and essentially do the whole job that humans are supposed to do, which led to a complete proliferation of non-human identities, right? These are
Right.
not human identities associated with an IDP or something. These are identities created in the applications, and these are identities created in the applications, and pretty much provisioned to a large extent, largely highly provisioned, excessively provisioned to ensure that the workloads do not get impacted and the business function continues. And with the entire application sprawl that happened over the last several years, right? SaaS-based applications, on-premise applications, cloud-based applications, hybrid sort of application environments, a lot of data getting pumped into these applications. What we have seen is the multiplier effect in terms of non-human identities that exist. So it typically kind of goes to like 20 times, between 20 and 50 times is what I would say, compared to human-centric
Wow.
identities. And Identity Confluence, pretty much handles a lot of these non-human identities in a very systematic, clear, and perfect way, I would say, in some ways, wherein it really knows exactly what has to be done. So we start off with a basic principle that any enterprise, CIO, CISO, IT departments should have complete control and governance of identities, non-human identities especially, within that organization. And zooming in into a certain application range, we want to make sure that an application owner has complete visibility of all identities in their applications, in the applications that he she is the owner of, and should be able to really come up with an entire map of all these identities and their privileges and control over these identities. And Identity Confluence really handles this in a very systematic way, as I said, through the reconciliation board. So the moment we connect to a particular application, we surface all of these identities as part of the identity visibility that we bring in, and very intelligently classify these identities, non-human identities in a way, or rather, I would say still they are not classified as non-human yet. We bring in the visibility so that the application owner can now decide if this account is orphan account, a dormant account, a misprovisioned account, overprivileged account, to be decommissioned account, or an account which is already there in IDP, and lastly, if it is a non-human account. And when that, through this reconciliation board that is already there in Identity Confluence, the application owner is very, clearly simply able to do this, bringing in the visibility required. And finally, tag those non-human identities. And this is very important. We got to tag
Right.
those non-human identities to a human identity, sort of bringing in the human in the loop for executing anything, the non-human identities are supposed to do. So that's the last step which we do, and then making sure that there is dual ownership, and there is a succession plan for an owner if one of the owner is basically moved on, and through GML the next owner gets assigned, and so on and so forth. So essentially bringing these accounts under the purview of governance and control. Now, this is essentially the part of identities from a non-human identities. I mean, managing identities which are non-human in nature. AI actually brings in and takes this to the next frontier, and the next frontier is essentially the agentic AI and agentic identities, which are actually even more explosive and exploding in nature in terms of their ability to do things autonomously. And I think Kanchan, you want to take on the agent AI agents and agentic AI part of this?
Sure. So let us talk about how really IGS systems are evolving to manage the life cycle of agents, right? So let us go back to basics a little. So what is the difference between the traditional software systems versus the agentic AI systems? So traditional systems are typically rule-based systems and which are very static in nature. So the access patterns which get evolved as part of traditional systems are pretty predictable. But when we talk about the agentic AI systems, they are thoroughly different, because typically the way these systems would operate is you would give a goal to these agentic AI systems, and these systems would, in an autonomous manner, would define how would they achieve that goal. So so basically these systems would have a lot of agents involved, and these agents are working together to achieve that particular goal. While they are working together, there are pretty complex handshakes, there are pretty complex interactions that happen across these agents. Plus, these are completely dynamic in nature and they are also adaptive. So what I mean by that is, if you are giving the same input to the agentic AI system, not necessarily it will always reach to the goal in a consistent predefined manner, right? These agents would evolve. They can actually devise newer, more efficient ways to achieve the same goal, and that is why really predict exactly in which manner or in which flow these agents would interact with each other. So then basically these agents are somewhere in between. These are not really humans. They definitely share certain characters with humans, but they are not humans. They are not exactly non-humans because they are autonomous. They are able to take their own decisions. So you definitely have to treat them differently. Moreover, you have to ensure that these agents are really working in the given guardrails, right? They are not going beyond it. And that's the point where this governance really comes into picture. Now it's clear that you need to govern these agents very well, and IGS systems have a very major role to play there. But how Identity Confluence is doing it, right? Again, we are doing it in a very organized manner. And I would like to explain all the steps that we are taking to ensure that we are managing the entire life cycle of agents. So the first thing is you have to ensure that agents are first-class citizens in your IG systems. And that's what Identity Confluence is doing. We have agents which are first-class citizens. They are like human entities. So when we are making them first-class citizens, we are assigning a lot of attributes to these AI agents. So they would have the origin, they would have the human technical owner assigned to them. We would also define the guardrails around these agents. For example, which applications can they access? What entitlements do they have in those applications? We would assign this score to these agents. So all these attributes would form the AI agent identity. Now, in a manner, when a human identity gets created in the identity confluence, there are birthright policies which basically kick in and assign the required accesses to this human identity. In the exact same manner, we have the agent access templates for these agents. And whenever the agent gets created in the system, based on certain parameters and attributes, certain access templates would get assigned to these agents. So just to give certain examples of these access templates, right? Suppose there is an agent there is a ticketing agent, then that ticketing agent would get certain limited accesses to ServiceNow application. Suppose there is an agent that's working in the DevOps pipeline, then that agent would get access to the GitHub flows or certain limited accesses. So these are the access templates for the agents. Now, once these accesses are granted to agents, obviously you need to ensure that you don't have toxic combinations of these accesses, and that's where the SOD policies would also kick in. So you would ensure that the agent that's creating tasks is not able to approve those tasks. The agent that's pushing the code is not able to approve the PR request. So these are the SOD policies. The next step would be the least privilege access, right? So you have to ensure that are actually following least privilege principle. So for example, a certain agent is having certain access, and then that agent is not probably using that access, say for last X number of days, then that particular incidents would get highlighted, and even that access would get revoked. Or if you see a behavior of the agent which is a little different, for example, agent typically doesn't access certain application, doesn't access certain data, but if you see that, okay, this agent has accessed this data or application, you can highlight that anomaly. Then you also, one very important factor is the risk score. So there are certain behavioral patterns of agents which sort of get analyzed in Identity Confluence, and each agent would get the risk score assigned. This risk score gets used in the downstream flows, like it gets used in the access reviews. It also gets used in the alerting mechanism to alert the human owners if the risk score changes, right? And the last very important part is access reviews around agents. The way we have user access reviews for human identities, we do have access reviews for these agents. The entire behavioral patterns of these agents get represented to the owner of the agent, and then the owner can decide whether the agent is having right accesses, and even to an extent whether this agent is required in the system or can be deleted, right? So
Right.
basically, Identity Confluence is well equipped to handle the entire life cycle for agents, starting with discovery, granting access, SOD policies, least privilege, and access reviews. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Wow. So, to simply put, AI has introduced huge growth in these machine identities, the automated agents, right? And Identity Confluence, brings the auto discovery, the ownership of these non-human identities, the risk scoring, and full governance again for both the human and non-human identities. Uh, there are just so many exciting possibilities with Identity Confluence. It really makes me curious, what's next. Could you share a couple of, real world use cases that, where Identity Confluence has helped handle these AI-driven challenges?
Absolutely. I think, I can take that up, Prashant.
Yeah.
So we just talked about proliferation of non-human identity and then taking this to the complete next level with agentic AI, right? Where, as Kanchan was explaining, where these agents are, very interesting characters. I would say they're neither human nor non-human in a way, right? They exhibit characteristics of both the sides. Very interesting, I would say, observation and I would say very interesting sort of fact in front of us. Now, these agents and NHIs go ahead and do a bunch of work, right? As we talked about just some time back, pretty much executing a lot of these things in an autonomous way, and which also means that they generate enormous amount of logs that are there, which is more identity centric logs, access pattern logs, and evidence. Essentially, trying to basically making sure that who has done what, when, why, was this granted, not granted, all sort of these logs, provisioned, and who provisioned this account, all sort of these logs are getting created. And just imagine the amount of volume of logs that would get created. Now, one of the things that happens is at any point in time, if I want to pretty much go ahead and analyze these particular logs for very various reasons. One is, are these, for example, from a UAR perspective, if I want to approve a UARs for these agentic identities or non-human identities, I need to make sure that log in terms of my complete data in terms of who granted this access, why was this access granted, what are the privileges, when was this approved, Is this even required, not required, and so on and so forth. With the managers already burdened with so much of human identities, UARs, and now multiplying it by 50 times or 100 times over for non-human identities and actually going in and executing the UARs, they would probably have to stop their business and just do UARs as a business.
Yeah.
Now that is not possible, right? That's one. That's basically the biggest challenge we have seen. Now, AI comes handy here as well, and I'm going to tie this into a little bit of how regulatory compliances need to be met, by enterprises, right? Enterprises have to meet regulatory compliances, and auditors, they are a very different species. They need proof of everything and anything that's happening in the system. They don't care whether it's an agent doing it, AI doing it, NHI, they don't care anything. They look at logs and they basically ask the question, who granted this particular thing access to execute this thing, whatever that job is, which means that again they got to go back and ensure that they have these logs created, and now look at this whole huge logs already there, and basically scouting through that. So how do we address this, right? Identity confluence is essentially tackling this problem using AI. So AI generated a lot of these logs, AI generated all of these agents. They are autonomously executing things, and we're going to use AI again to go ahead and mine these particular logs to ensure that we collect evidences for regulatory compliances. How do we do it? At the right juncture of interest for compliances and regulatory purposes, right? So anything and everything that happens in the system, under the purview of identity conflicts, we ensure that our AI agents, again, we have an AI agents to do this job as well, they are basically like a watch agents, right? They are looking at every interaction that's going through the system, every agent acting on behalf of identity confluence, and making sure that we gather evidences which are directly linked to regulatory compliances control criteria. So any point in time when a regulatory officer comes in, right, auditor comes in and asks for a proof, the proof is already built in at the time, which is at the time that particular execution happens. So our proof, which is available through something called as evidence center, that's what we call as evidence center, is out of the box reporting for regulatory compliances for human identities, non-human identities, and agentic AIs.
Yeah.
So that's basically in a nutshell in terms of how AI is being used to counter some of the things that some of the mess that AI creates.
Yeah, right. So it's like a double-edged sword. I mean,
Yeah.
AI is posing challenges, and then we are also
Okay.
using AI to address them.
Right. So the key theme I understand is the scale, right? AI is creating far more identity activity, and along with it, the compliance requirements. I think making continuous monitoring and automated evidence an essential as we go ahead.
Right.
And like you called out, right? Now let's flip the lens, right? AI doesn't necessarily create challenges or always create challenges. It also provides solutions. So how does Identity Confluence use AI to make these identity governance, smarter, faster, and more effective?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one, Prashant, because we definitely are using AI in many use cases, and that's definitely making Identity Confluence faster, accurate, and serving well to our customers. So the first use case that I would like to call out is faster application onboarding, right? So gone are the days where you are taking weeks, if not months, to build a new connector, writing Java code to make that happen, right? AI is actually enabling us to bring newer, different, innovative ways to ensure that the connector is built in much less efforts. I would say maybe just 5 to 10% efforts than whatever it used to take in the pre-AI era. And how that's helping our customers, right? So that's actually helping to immediately, I mean, our customers can immediately start getting ROI once they invest into Identity Confluence. So two ways. So immediate ROI would mean immediate ROI would also help them. Rather, I would say that professional services cost is also arrested because you don't really need to spend a lot of integration cycles in building the connectors. So that is like first, probably biggest advantage that AI is bringing in to our customers. The second is, the second feature that I'm going to explain is sort of pretty simplistic in nature, but from the impact point of view, I guess it really has a huge impact on the usability. So typically when managers do user access reviews, so they would sort of look at the names of the entitlements. And few of these systems, for example, SAP or Salesforce, so these actually have pretty complex multidimensional entitlements. And just looking at the name of the entitlement, manager has no clue as to what sort of accesses does this entitlement grant this user into the target application. So using AI, we can auto generate the description for these entitlements. And once we showcase that, we surface that in our contextual information for user access reviews, managers can actually understand what exactly this user can do in the target application using this entitlement or access. And that enables manager to take the informed decision whether to continue or revoke that access for this user. So that's the second use case. The third use
Nice.
case is actually around role mining, right? So
Mhm.
we have the access logs, and then AI enables us to analyze those logs, generate the access patterns. And if we see that there are certain direct entitlements which are happening across a group of users, then AI sort of recommends that you better define a role instead of assigning direct entitlements, because direct entitlement is always hassle. It is like hassle for managing them, can get exploited. So having a role based system is always better. So that's how AI actually helps in role mining.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, yeah, auto discovery of roles, at the same time, role fitment as well.
Yeah.
In case there is a user in a certain group who is also, she is essentially doing the same job as some of the other people or other employees assigned a certain role, then this auto role detection mining and sort of actually suggesting that, hey, you would probably want to have this role is also taken care of. Yeah, I think these are absolute, I would say, like first class things that we already built into Identity Confluence, already available for our customers to use right away. And then there's one more. I think there was something that I would like to add is probably one of my favorites as well, which is it's very new to identity security in general, which is the identity threat detection and response system. It gets a little bit, or rather, it starts merging a little bit into more of a SIEM analytics, slightly into SOC domain as well, but more on the SIEM side. And why I think Identity Confluence, or rather identity security products, are in a way poised to take on this particular thing in a much better way is because of its core ability to ensure that, or rather the data that it has is who has access to which applications at what entitlements and who granted and so on and so forth. And then connecting with IDP logs and application access logs. Identity Confluence, identity security product like Identity Confluence is in a much better position now to cite any anomaly or any threat with regards to access for that particular identity. It can be human identity, non-human agent, it doesn't matter anymore now. Any of these identities trying to access the application, and any anomaly with regards to that can be absolutely cited right away because of its core knowledge of what this identity can do and cannot do, which external systems, like SOC analytics, which is basically SIEM-based analytics, or SIEM-based SIEM analytics and all, really do not have this information. They do not have information of what the identity is provisioned to do or not do. All they see is more of a pattern and behavior, and based on logs that they have seen for that particular identity over a period of time. So I think identity threat detection and response is something which is taking identity security to the next level, where there is going to be an immediate, I would say, discovery of any anomaly, and moreover, immediate, this is again very unique with Identity Confluence, our ability to deprovision the account if there is anything that we detect is at a certain threshold or serious level, because we can deprovision the account like in a snap, so that any further damage that possibly could have happened with that account for any unauthorized access is immediately taken care of. So that's one of my favorite use cases of AI coming right in between to ensure that we take immediate charge and control of any identity going rogue and trying to do things in its own way. So yeah, that's basically what it is, Prashant.
Wow. So, again, for the larger audience, so simply put, what you're saying is Identity Confluence speeds up the onboarding of applications. gives you, AI-based contextual description for entitlements. It improves the role mining, detects anomalies instantly, right? And, enables real-time proactive identity governance. So, looking ahead, in general, what does the future of identity security look like?
Yeah, I think I mean I can
You
take
can
that
take,
up.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll try to phrase there's a lot of things identity security, where identity security is going, and with the advent of AI, right? Bunch of things really happening. So to begin with, I feel and I believe that identity is at the core. At the same time, it's kind of now the perimeter of cybersecurity. Systems have evolved, and we have seen, at a larger landscape, in terms of infrastructure security, things have kind of fallen in place. But the last mile access to data is still a function of identity, and ensuring that this identity, who's accessing, again, human, non-human, agentic, is completely governed with regards to all the guardrails and everything for the access of that particular data is becoming the key to ensure that you have a strong enterprise-wide identity security posture. Otherwise, these accounts, these agents, who are already privileged to access certain functions, certain data in your enterprise, can actually be exploited and go completely unknown, and your entire data can be wiped out as well. So I think identity security is becoming, as I said, now the core, at the same time the perimeter for cybersecurity at large, right? Uh, the other thing is, so that's number one, and basically making sure that identity security platform handles the governance for these identities, right? That's point number one. Point number two, in my opinion, is, see, I think identity security is now taking a center stage with regards to becoming a platform of choice for managing your rest of the application ecosystem. So, for example, what I mean by that is your HR application slash onboarding application is now connected to an identity security platform. Your IDPs are now connected, and it could be multiple IDPs in AD and Active Directory and so on and so forth, is now connected to an identity security platform. And your entire downstream provisioning, deprovisioning, and everything into applications is also now connected to identity security platform, which means that identity security platforms have become so powerful that they absolutely govern anything and everything that actually happens within the enterprise. So that's going to be the future, especially when we look at agentic AIs and agentic identities. In fact, so much so that in one of our customer use cases, we are looking at just in time, not just provisioning and deprovisioning, just in time identity creation for agentic workloads who do not need to exist for long term. So I want to create an agentic identity, get the job done, and destroy the agentic identity.
Yeah. Ephemeral access.
Ephemeral access, correct. So that's going to be, I would say, like the point number two. There's a bunch of them. So another one is, again, my favorite is really not assigning any static role to identities, right? Static roles means they are always provisioned. They carry risk, and especially agentic in the agentic world, these agentic identities are generally over provisioned for one reason, because they are going to execute the workloads. And as Kanchan was mentioning, right? And we have seen it in action, it's real action. These agents are, they do everything is autonomous. They actually discover path. They actually go ahead, and next time you execute the same workload, it actually executes in a different way. So it's not rule based or something. It is like a human doing things, and it can go, it's like getting to your office. You can take three different routes, and that agent decides at runtime which routes to take. That's exactly what really happens. So in this case, what we should be doing is dynamic role assignment and dynamic entitlement assignment, including deprovisioning of that account at runtime as required. I think that is one thing, which is basically means that don't keep your privileges standing and, granted ever or forever. I think that's number three, which I would say that, we got to make sure that, it is taken care of. Um, I mean, then the standard ones, which is basically making sure that you have a user access review that is being taken care of. Again, we're looking at agentic AIs and non-human identities and so on and so forth. So go ahead and build intelligent systems. Identity Confluence is, by the way, doing a bunch of these things that I'm talking to you. So intelligent UARs is super important and what we do in Identity Confluence is an ability for the managers to do with a decision support system, and I personally call it confident decision making. Managers lack the confidence while executing the UARs. We got to infuse that confidence using the all sort of information that can be made available for the manager to actually make a decision. That's number 4. And then there's a couple of more as well. I think I just made some notes. I'm just going to read through that. So zero trust is one. Trust no identity in the system. Trust no identity. No identity means no identity. Every identity has to be questioned. Every identity has to go through an approval process for entitlements. Every identity has to have some kind of policy and guardrails assigned. So be it human identity, non-human identity, or agentic identities. So I think I would say at least half a dozen that things that I talked about is all that absolute modern identity security systems should make and rather make sure that they have all of these things put in place.
So Amit, I would just summarize this in one sentence. So future of identity security is very safe since Identity Confluence is in play. Yeah.
All right. So in the essence, right, the future is autonomous, right? It's real-time detection, adaptive controls, and what you summarize, I would call it as self-feeding identity, self-healing identity governance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So everyone, before we wrap up, let's open the floor for questions from our audience. I request you all to, virtually raise your hands, use your Zoom raise hand feature, and I'll call on you one by one.
I guess we were super clear that no questions.
I think we have a question from Madhav.
Okay.
Hey Madhav, go ahead. Can someone please unmute Madhav?
Yatin, can you do so? Madhav.
Yes, Madhav, we have the access to unmute. You can.
Yeah, hi Kanchan, hi Amit.
Hey,
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are. Yes.
From AI, so I come from the cybersecurity background.
Yeah.
So lately, I was more focused on the development security, shift left approach. So I was just thinking probably this question may not be in a scope of the identity influence, but how would it help from AI security perspective? That's first question. And there is one more question following to one of the thing that Kanchan, you talked about provisioning with the template base. I'll come to that later. But do you see any overlap for AI security? Quickly giving background is when I'm training a model, I have to make sure that the sample data which I acquired is what is used for the training through, say, hash compare. Simple, I'm keeping it simple. So on similar grounds, do you see any overlap of this particular offering by, yeah. Okay, I think question is clear, right? I'm not confusing.
Actually, it's not very clear to me.
Yeah, maybe
you can rephrase it in a very simple manner.
So okay, I'll rephrase it. So when I'm looking AI systems from the security point of view, AI security point of view, not AI insecurity point of view. So I need to make sure our data pipelines are secured. So data in encryption, data in REST, and then validating data acquired and validated the same data being used for training. So there I put security principles like probably MD5 hash calculated at the source, and when I pull it for the training, I calculate that hash and I compare that hash just to make sure that the data is not polluted in the channel. So probably my question to you, Kanchan, may be attached to this, but from AI security or AI ecosystem security architect or a designer or a lead point of view, how do you see any overlap for the way Identity Confluence is managing the identities, non-human identities?
Maybe
Mukesh,
I mean, I can. So, Madhav, see, so here's the thing, okay? See, uh, identity security product like Identity Confluence. See, we don't get into the application data space in a way, right? So this whole MD5 hash, and encryption on the wire and so on and so forth, I think is anyway something which is more of a application execution and how we want to do things and all of that. We are within the application sphere. What we control and govern as through Identity Confluence is who has access to this data, who granted access to this data, when was it granted, why was it granted, was there a business role assigned to this, when was the access last reviewed, and so on and so forth. So as to ensure that the access to this data is completely governed and controlled. What that data is, now you talked about databases and all. It could be any claims processing application in some insurance, or it could be drug discovery, or it could be any MIS payroll processing application. We don't really care about it.
Yeah, sorry, I mean, just to cut from the interest of time. Similarly, MD5 is not AI. MD5 is the
I know.
one of the tool
Yeah.
which is used when
Yeah.
we look at the AI security.
Yeah.
Similarly, identity is the tool where we secure it through governing or restricting the identities or access to it.
Access to it, right?
Similarly, like you said, you don't care what that data is, but you care about who is supposed to access that, and only he or she or that entity gets the access.
Correct.
Right.
On similar lines, we use MD5. We don't care what data in pipeline.
Yeah.
Why that data? That's the data science point of view. We use MD5 just to make sure that whatever was the data at the source is exactly the data at the destination.
Right.
That's the only. Beyond that, it's beyond AI security scope. Similarly, on the same grounds, identity, like, okay, now let me come back to that question. Like Kanchan said, we have like, just for an example, correct me if I'm wrong, you have some sort of templates where the AI generated identity or some non-human identity gets the attributes and templates, and only those accesses are granted to it.
Right.
Okay. Now, again, here what you are interested is in an access. You really don't care about with that access what ecosystem that particular entity is going to handle. What task it is doing. If task A is allowed for that entity, you are going to allow that entity to do that A task. You really don't care what does mean by that A task. So on similar fronts, like as I said, we can use the MD5 kind of thing, which is used in a verification. We use that in a AI security for data validation. Similarly, do we have anything? I mean, does this identity security you are talking about has any overlap from the AI security architect point of view?
Mukesh, you want to take that?
I want to take that. So there are two things that we are talking about. One is how do we use AI in identity security, and the second is how do you make sure that the AI that we use, right, is secure, right? So if we are talking about these, right, we already have guard. I mean, like any other, I mean, when we use any LLM or any AI, right, AI-based tools, right, we need to make sure that we have policies for the prompts. We have guardrails for response to API protections, right, safety classifiers. So we already have these guardrails put in any AI that we use, right? So AI that we use, we use appropriate guardrails, right, inside our product. But if you're talking about, I mean, I'm not sure when you said MD5, right? It is a way to protect. I mean, it is a way to protect, verify that we are not missing. I mean, the data is not being tampered.
Right.
Similarly, we already have guardrails in our systems. Are you talking about this? Because these are. I mean, this area is different, right? talking about LLM security or guardrails, right? That's a different area or a different product stack that we're looking at.
Okay. Mm, okay. Okay. We'll take it offline. I probably need to rephrase what exactly I want to ask.
Sure. Yeah, we can
Sure.
take like
Hey, can you hear us, guys?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
Looks like no.
yeah.
All right. So then that's a wrap. Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Kanchan. And thanks to everyone who's joined, right?
Absolutely.
AI is transforming identity security, and organizations need governance that's intelligent, continuous, and built for both human and non-human identities. Uh, if you would like a deeper discussion or a demo of Identity Confluence, we would be happy to connect. Thank you and have a great day.
Yeah, I
Thanks,
have one
everyone.
question if you don't mind. Can I?
Yeah, go
Come
ahead.
on this side.
Sorry,
So, uh,
who?
is I'm audible to you,
Yeah,
Kanchan?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
my
Who's
Yes, yes.
question is,
Yes,
uh,
Kumar.
yeah,
Kumar.
Kumar?
Kumar.
Okay. Hi.
Kumar Gaurav. Yeah, Kumar Gaurav this side. So my question is that uh, the models that you are building is like you have developed that model that we are training by giving the data, or how it work, like using that machine learning in that process. Because you say like you're giving a score risk management, so as per the data you have like we provided, or maybe you have in backend we have put a condition on the basis of they will check like this is a percentage of correction that user should have that access or not, or while certify the managing access for the employee, so they not do the rubber stamping. The manager can see that this is the access that employee should be required because majority of the employee have that access, so it
Hmm.
helps you to take a decision faster. So all those backend model, like you build that or how you will do that?
No. Completely 100%, indigenously built over here right in Pune.
Okay.
So yeah, but so I'll tell you what, we have a background in this particular domain, right? So we've been working in this domain for last 2 decades. We
Mhm.
are also, as a company, we're also the first solution provider partner for Okta. We've done a lot of work on building Okta type of workflows. We've done work on Savient, SailPoint, Entra. You just pretty much name it, and we have done a lot of work
I'm
around.
currently working on saving too.
Yeah.
IG.
So basically, and that pretty much helped us go ahead and build our own way, our own product, and which we, as I said before as well, very differentiated offering compared to some of the currently leading identity security platforms.
Great. So how you like differentiate your tool with the other tools that in our
Oh,
market?
we just talked about it, right? First of all, this whole application onboarding. I mean, have you worked on Savient or something? You said.
Yeah, I'm working on the saving.
Yeah, Savient or SailPoint, right? I personally done work on both Savient and SailPoint as well. So one of the primary issues or concerns is ability, is the application onboarding. I believe especially SailPoint. Savient is a little better, but SailPoint is a tool built by developers for developers, understood only by developers, deployed by developers, maintained by developers, and built by developers, and basically it's a development tool. And
Correct. It's
IT
more
is like.
like you on premises tool like a client manage.
Yeah, and IT is like a sitting duck there, just trying to figure out what's going on. We want to change that whole paradigm. That's where our application sync framework, we call it universal application sync framework, comes in, where we've pretty much done a complete overhaul from going from writing a Java code to really actually doing it, using wizard based, and you just name it, LLM based, wizard based, configuration based, JSON object configuration stuff, bunch of things in which we can actually go and automate application onboarding to the point that, as Kanchan was saying, can I get this application onboard in 10th of the time that Savient and SailPoint is doing, right? So we have been able to achieve that pretty much for all of them. Auto discovery, auto descriptions, auto discovery of the description based on LLMs. We do a gradation against variety of LLMs to come up with the right description that can be used across the application until the point of UARs are being executed and all. Then, third one is the role mining that we talked about, auto discovery of roles, and how do we actually come up with, this roles that can be used across the application, across the enterprise, at the same time, not cause any role fatigue within the application. The biggest, I would say, differentiator is in the UARs and how we view UARs. UARs is the pertinent pain, and Identity Confluence pretty much handles this, making them super intelligent. As we want to bring it to the point where the manager should feel like, okay, what, I want to go and do UARs today. That's what, it's like checking WhatsApp. That's how I want managers to go and look up UARs. And UARs is intelligent UARs. There's two things. One is bringing in all the contextual data that is required to make a decision. Number two is essentially ensuring, not just this data, but providing the right inputs from a risk perspective for an enterprise, as to basically defined by that particular enterprise as the tenant configurations, whether or not this can be auto approved, very confidently. So I said before, contextual information and confident decision support system. This is absolutely unique. No other platform in the world has this. So that's what basically we are doing as well. So, this is just top four things. Plus the fifth one, I talked about evidence center, right? Evidence center is an ability to make sure that you have an out of the box reporting available for compliances, regulatory compliances. So these things are just not there in any of the identity security platform. Kumar, right? Kumar, just to name a few of things.
Kumar, you can build technical services on top of it.
That's good. That's a good one. I like that.
Okay, so Kanchan, the quick question is, earlier in your talk, you said about the dynamic, so non-human or AI agent, agentic AI or whatever, role assignment or permission granting. So that's based on some sort of template, that kind of thing, that things are that happens. Now, as we know, the generative AI or AI learns itself and chooses different ways to do the things it is supposed to do. In that case, would it be possible that that particular avatar of that AI would not fit in any of the template you would apply to it from the permission point of view? And if that is the valid case, how would you handle it?
So typically, that would not happen, because so the flow across the agents would change. The agent itself would not change, right? And then these templates are actually defined based on the attributes. So as long as that agent is sort of satisfying that attribute, that agent would get that template assigned, accesses to that template. So what you are saying would not really happen practically, because these systems are sort of inventing efficient ways to achieve a goal, but the basic functionality of an agent still remains the same.
Okay, fine. Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think we've hit our mark. Sorry. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks everyone, and thanks Kumar and Madhav, especially both of you, because you really made it very interactive by asking nice questions. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.